Tonight, DSS warns political and religious leaders against inciting comments, threatens to go after suspected agents of anarchy. APC Interim National Committee backs President Buhari, says his urgency and capacity to end the security crisis is not in doubt. Police intercept cache of ammunition in Ebonyi State as arsonists burned down INEC office in Akwa Ibom. And India records highest daily coronavirus death toll with about 4,000 deaths in 24 hours alone. Freedom may not be entirely free if it threatens the unity and sovereignty of the country. That's a message from the Department of State Services to Nigerians today as the security agency says it will begin a clampdown on agents of anarchy in the country. The Secret Police says some persons are creating instability through comments that threaten the sovereignty and corporate existence of the country. In a statement by its Public Relations Officer, Peter Afanaya, the agency frowns on what it describes as the unnecessary vituperations and activities of some religious and past political leaders who, according to the DSS, have either called for forceful change of government or mass action against it. The DSS describes the situation as unfortunate, where those who should be patriotic are allowing their personal ambition to ruin the nation, reminding every Nigerian that although democracy offers free speech, it does not give room for reckless pronouncements. The statement further reads, while the service reaffirms its unambiguous support to an indivisible, indissoluble, and united Nigerian state in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution, it will no longer tolerate deliberate machinations by subversive and hostile groups whose agenda is to throw the country into anarchy so as to serve the interests of their sponsors. The agency says it is working with other security and law enforcement agencies to ensure the maintenance of peace and internal security in the country. Our conversations on national security do not exclude religious leaders, as they have also been lending their voices to the critical issue of national interest. The 2021 Pre-Synod Nehemiah Summit of the All Souls Church Anglican Communion, Lekki in Lagos, gave another platform for this discussion. The convener of the summit, who is the Diocesan Bishop of Lagos and Missioner, Right Reverend Humphrey Olumakaye, says it is time for Nigerians to come together and deliberate on ways to maintain unity as a nation. Our correspondent, Yomi Otaibe, reports.
Question of securing this important nation.
Paramount on the minds of every patriotic Nigerian at this time is how the country can be saved from the jaws of insecurity.
Thank you very much for coming.
Being a part of the larger nation, the Anglican Communion through the All Souls Church Lekki Lagos brings together those who can contribute their insights into how insurgency, banditry, herders-farmers crisis, kidnappings and other forms of violent crimes can be contained in the country.
In recent times, there have been calls for national conference and restructuring from almost all quarters of the nation. It is also my belief that we are at that critical junction in our national history when we have to come together and deliberate the way to maintain our unity as one nation. Nigeria as a nation needs proper restructuring and rebuilding for her to arise out of these ashes of despondency.
Serving on the National Committee are high-caliber Christian church leaders and leaders of other religious sects. The committee is constantly seeking to devise ways and means to fashion out reliable factors in the onerous tasks of building and rebuilding our dear nation.
The keynote speaker, who is the governor of Ekiti State and chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, is confident that Nigeria will come out stronger from the current situation, adding that the solution to the challenges is not unidimensional.
Clearly, military intervention is a very small part of the counter-terrorism strategy and should be used as a narrowly defined tool accompanied by diplomatic, social, and criminal justice models as essential components for comprehensive counterterrorism strategy. So, in being tough on terrorism, it is also important to be tough on the root causes of terrorism and the drivers that fuel violent extremism. Underlying grievances must be addressed, and the need for a Marshall Plan of sorts to assist the people is a necessity.
However, the security consultant among the speakers makes case for urgent actions to be taken so as to save the nation from dire consequences.
The wind is blowing us toward the rocks. Let me assure you, the wind is gale force wind. It's blowing us toward the rocks. So we need to steer harder away from it.
The discussion today is a prelude to the 34th Synod of the Diocese of Lagos. For everyone here, finding lasting solution to the rising security challenges in Nigeria requires concerted efforts by all, with governments at all levels taking the lead. From All Souls Church in Lekki, Lagos, Yomi Otaigbe, Channels Television News.
Call for disintegration in some quarters is unnecessary. That's the position of the national leader of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, and he affirms that Nigeria is better together. The former governor of Lagos State spoke in support of the federal government, calling on Nigerians to be patient because the current security challenges have historical backgrounds but will eventually be solved. His reaction comes amid calls for a decisive action against security threats in the country. Made the comments at an event in Lagos.
Tolerance, understanding, and management of anger is the solution to what we have on the ground. No leader of any nation, nor any community, we want its own people slaughtered, kidnapped, or killed. So you cannot put it on the head of one man. This situation has its historical perspective. We know when it started, but we don't want to give excuses. This government will perform. Nigeria will feel safe and be happy. You know, there is the twist and turn in democracy. There's always the hazard of the challenges, and we just have to build and tolerate each other, express love and harmony.
For the River State Governor Nyesom Wiki, President Muhammadu Buhari needs to become personally committed as well as taking direct control of activities in the sphere of national security and hold those he gives tasks responsible for their actions. The governor told Channels Television's Ladi Ekridulale on our current affairs program Newsnight that there was no way accounts should not be rendered for money voted for the purchase of weapons for the armed forces and where the arms themselves are.
When people who are working with you believe that you can't be manipulated, they capitalize on that. Right? They capitalize on that. Hey, if they know, then look, be careful. He gets information everywhere. They will sit down and sit up and say, look, let's not do this. It is important not to say I'm committed. It's important for you to be committed, to be seen to be committed. I was surprised when I was watching the television, when the House of Reps invited the Chief of Army Staff about the purchase of weapons. And he said, look, you know the right people to ask. And you remember there was a time $1 billion was taken from the Access Code account to provide for security. And it tells me, if I should release that money as the chief executive, the chief security officer, knowing how Nigeria is, I will make sure that those weapons were bought. and the right ones were bought. You have to take leadership. I couldn't have released $1 billion. And then nobody can show me those equipments. Even if those who are at the helm of affairs of security, they have left, the onus is on you. You can still summon them back. Where are the equipments that we bought?
You can watch the full interview with the Rivers State Governor, Wiki, on Newsnight. It airs tomorrow, Monday, May 3rd, 2021 at 9 p.m. right here on Channels Television. In the meantime, the ruling All Progressives Congress is throwing its weight behind President Muhammadu Buhari's ability to end insecurity in the country, and it says the party does not have any doubt in the president's capacity and urgency to do so. The APC's reassurance is in response to a communique issued by governors of the main opposition, People's Democratic Party, on recent security incidents in some parts of the country. The National Secretary of the APC's Caretaker and Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee, Senator John Akpano-Dodehe, cautions stakeholders and other well-meaning Nigerians to avoid politicizing or being simplistic about the security situation in the country. The statement reads, "At a time like this, our duty to our nation as good citizens should outweigh political party colorations, and PDP governors should know that divisive rhetorics can only embolden the criminals who are carrying out these cowardly acts." The APC statement adds that it is not the time to play to the gallery, but to sit to find real and lasting solutions to the problem, adding that the president has ordered an investigation into the cause of all the crises. The party says it prays the investigations should not reveal conspiracies by the opposition to weaken the government in furtherance of its desperate 2023 aspirations. After a long silence and maintaining a low voice on national issues due to the absence of a leadership face, the umbrella body of the Ijaw ethnic group known as the Ijaw National Congress has finally selected Professor Benjamin Okaba as its new president. One issue that came to the front burner at the inauguration of Professor Okaba is security, and he says the Ijaw nation will address this squarely.
Bringing prosperity to not just Bayelsa State.
The long silence from the Ijaw National Congress on national issues in the country may have come to an end. The group has been through a quiet period due to the absence of an elected leadership in the Ijaw National Congress. To fill the void and ensure that the Ijaw community has a unified position regarding national issues, the group elected Professor Benjamin Okaba as its president. The governor of Bayelsa State, Senator Daoye Diri, alongside the deputy governor of Delta State, Kingsley Otuaro, urged participants at the convention to adhere to the laws of the land while highlighting the state of insecurity in the country.
Insecurity is all its worst across the entire country, Nigeria, as armed bandits and herdsmen with their cattle freely invade hitherto perfect farmlands and communities. And that is why your state government, the Bayelsa state government, has been proactive in signing into law an anti-grazing law in Bayelsa state.
INEC, as you all know, is a socio-cultural organization. It is that it is the symbol of our collective survival and existence in the Nigerian Federation that I want to say is complex and amorphous.
The newly elected president of the Ijaw National Congress identifies insecurity as a pressing issue that the Ijaw nation is willing to work together with other ethnic groups to provide solutions to.
Senators from across political parties are united in confronting the issues of insecurity and providing a solution, and that is the way to go. So Ijaw nation should also get united. Ijaw nation will also try to look at internal ways of addressing these issues, while we also look upon the government to fulfill its constitutional responsibility of securing the lives and property of its citizens.
The Ijaw National Congress has been without national leadership since its flop election in 2019.
In part 2 after the break, hope for over 10,000 displaced persons from Gaydam community in Yobe State. Victims share their stories as government comes to their aid. Plus, we'll look at unemployment statistics, the labor movement and insecurity in the country. We'll be joined by our data analyst, Babajide Ogusonwo. Join us again. Welcome back. If it has joined us to watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. DSS warns political and religious leaders against inciting comments, threatens to go after suspected agents of anarchy. APC Interim National Committee backs President Buhari, says his urgency and capacity to end security crisis is not in doubt. Police intercepts cache of ammunition in Ebonyi as arsonists burn down INEC office in Akwa Ibom. And India records highest daily coronavirus death toll with about 4,000 deaths in 24 hours. Arsonists have burnt down an area office of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in a Seng Udim local government area of the state. The commission said in a statement that the security guard on duty at the INEC office escaped unhurt, but the building and property inside were burnt down. According to the statement, items destroyed include 345 ballot boxes, 135 voting cubicles, megaphones, water tanks and office furniture. INEC resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom, Mr. Mike Igini, says the attack on the facility comes just after the commission had concluded the inventory of electoral materials in readiness for the 2023 general election. He says if attacks on INEC facilities are left unchecked, they may constitute a setback on the commission's preparations, including the ongoing conversion of voting points to polling units, the forthcoming continuous registration of voters exercise, and the conduct of polls. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Police Force says its officials in Ebonyi State have intercepted about 753 live ammunition meant for general-purpose machine gun. Police spokesperson Frank Mba says the weapons were concealed in a sack being transported in a commercial vehicle from Abakaliki to Umuahia in Abia State. This development comes on the heels of attacks on police officers and other security personnel in Ebonyi State and other states in the southeast. According to a statement by the police, 5 suspected armed robbers were also arrested in connection to a foiled bank robbery in the state. Staying with security issues, more than 10,000 persons displaced by Boko Haram insurgents from their community in Gaydam, Yobe State are looking forward to returning home, but not for now. The federal government is assuring them of safety at the temporary camps where they are currently seeking shelter with supply of food items. This assurance, however, has not taken away their hope of returning home someday, even as some recount their story behind their displacements. Friday, April 23rd, 2021, would remain unforgettable for residents of the Gaydam community in Yobe State, as suspected Boko Haram insurgents invaded the community and displaced thousands of residents. There are some of the Gaydam internally displaced persons taking refuge with their family members in Damaturu, the state capital. Hadiza Hassan, a 25-year-old who gave birth to a baby girl on the eve of the attack, says she trekked 10 kilometers to find safety. This situation prompted the Northeast Development Commission to donate food and non-food items to the internally displaced persons identified across the state.
Here, we are just trying to present some items of food and non-food items for the immediate relief for the people. You know, when people leave their normal abode and forced to leave, you know, they leave behind everything in a disarray. So what we have done here is provide some food items and some non-food items for them to have some support initially before other things can follow.
The Yobe state government explains measures put in place to cushion the effects of the attack on the IDPs, just as the Humanitarian and Disaster Management Ministry in the state pledged fair distribution of the items to all beneficiaries.
The local government through the state emergency management system has been assisting with food and non-food items for the past 1 week throughout the state to bring new support to the people. I wish to therefore commend the effort of the North East Development Commission for the timely intervention in the state by providing 7,000 bags of 25 kg of rice, 1,500 bottles of vegetable oil, 1,500 cartons of macaroni, 1,400 cartons of spaghetti, and other non-food items among others.
We just had a meeting with the stakeholders of the Gaidam community, and they will also supervise and support us in supervising the distribution of these items to the good people of Gaidam and environs.
Items donated include 7,000 bags of rice, 1,500 gallons of vegetable oil, cartons of tomato paste, macaroni and spaghetti, 3,000 pieces of branded nylon mats, blankets, hand sanitizers, among others. A young Akwa Ibom job seeker who was declared missing a few days ago after leaving home for a job interview has been found dead and buried in a shallow grave. The lady, Ijaw Congress, who was last seen on April 29th when she left her house to meet with a contact she reportedly met on social media who promised her a job. Her disappearance gave rise to the hashtag #FindIjaw, where many aided attempts to find the missing graduate. Her friend, however, broke the news of her death today, saying that she was raped and killed. Police authorities in Akwa Ibom State say they have arrested the suspect, Uduak Frank Akpan, and he has confessed to killing the victim. Meanwhile, the abducted student of King's School, known as Capra Secondary Mission School, located in Ghana Rop Village in Barkinladi local government area of Plateau State, has been rescued by troops of Operation Safe Haven. A spokesperson of Operation Safe Haven, Major Ibrahim Shitu, explained in a statement that the rescue operation was achieved through the standard search and rescue efforts on the troops without payment of ransom. Mr. Shitu says the student is in good health and has been reunited with other students in the college. The gunmen had invaded the mission school on April 28th, where they abducted 4 students after 3 others escaped following the intervention of security operatives. The school is a few kilometers away from the Yakubu Gowon Airport and about 60 kilometers from Jos, the Plateau State capital. International Workers' Day, also known as Labor Day, is a moment to celebrate labor and reflect on the quality of living for women and men around the world. How is life? That's perhaps the number one question on the lips of Nigerians. Nigeria's 70 million labor force. Abajido Gusanwo, our data scientist and information consultant, is here to share insights on the connection between labor, unemployment, and insecurity. Great to see you.
Good evening, Amarachi.
How is life?
It depends on who you ask. It really depends on who you ask. But how is life? I should ask you.
No, I asked you. I'm asking the questions. How is life? So Labor Day and minimum wage are like twins. We've been talking about these issues for as long as I can remember. Is there any new evidence on the cost of living and the impact on the national minimum wage?
Cost of living, yes. Especially, it'll be good for us to explain this in 3 different ways. The first is to look at the history. The second, to look at the present. And then I'll finally talk about the future. And if we look at the history, this Labor Day movement has been running for over 13 decades, dating back to the 1890s when it all started with a lot of discussions for better cost of living for women and especially low-income workers. So that is the history. But let's talk about the present. And that's because exactly on this day, a decade ago, Osama bin Laden was killed on this day. But Amarachi, tonight I'm not going to analyze the killing of Osama bin Laden. I want to analyze what is killing Nigeria's workers. And there's one thing that is killing the Nigerian worker today, and it's called inflation. I'll explain inflation from three perspectives. The first, on April 19, when President Buhari signed the minimum wage of 30,000 naira, workers smiled a bit. But I tell people that the minimum wage in Africa and in countries like Nigeria, where inflation is high, it's actually a myth. And that's because between April 19th of 2019 and today, inflation has converted that 30,000 naira minimum wage to 21,000 naira. That's one way to look at it. The second way to look at it and understand this is, in April 2019, when the president signed the minimum wage, 30,000 naira will give you $98. Today, 30,000 naira will give you only $62. And finally, another way to look at it is, 4 decades ago, when we started this minimum wage thing, the national minimum wage in Nigeria in 1981 was 125 naira per month. You heard me right. 125 naira per month in 1981. Here's the catch. What 125 naira will buy you in 1981 is more than what 30,000 naira will buy for you today. So that is the present situation. So we've talked about the history, we've talked about the present, and let's talk quickly about the future before you ask your next question.
Oh, go on.
And the future is, we need to stop looking at the Nigerian labor force in terms of the traditional labor. We now need to look at our labor force as a talent force, not just the labor force. As long as we keep looking at it as labor manually, and we will really not understand the significance of Nigeria's talent force, which I prefer to call it.
Right. So the Labour Minister, Dr. Chris Ngige, recently shared some concerns about the accuracy of Nigeria's unemployment figures. In your opinion, how accurate is the Labour report, and how productive is Nigeria's labour force?
So the first way to look at this is, let's look at, we need to understand Nigeria's labor structure, because there are 5 levels to it. And if we look at exactly what is going on from the population perspective, you will see that there are different changes. But what we have in front of us is why Nigerians are getting more frustrated. And that really speaks to the unemployment situation. And here's the catch. Based on the accurate facts from the National Bureau of Statistics, they say that the northeastern region is the region that has the highest number of people that are unemployed and underemployed. And that is the real significance of that. So 70% of the labor force in the northeastern region is either unemployed or underemployed. No other region has those sort of numbers, 70% of the labor force. The second region is the southeast region, where you see that in the southeast, 65% of the labor force in the southeast is either unemployed and underemployed. And so we clearly can see some correlation between what is the insecurity challenges we face in the northeast and in the southwest. These are the 2 regions that have the highest number of what we call frustrated Nigerians. And by frustrated Nigerians, we are looking at Nigerians in the labor force that are either unemployed, they have nothing to do, or they are underemployed. And really, that is the way we need to look at the labor force. If you look at in the southwest, 40% of those in the labor force in the southwest are either unemployed or underemployed. And those are the way we need to look at the figures to be able to understand exactly what is going on.
So then how do those figures explaining the unemployment situation, how do they then influence security in Nigeria?
You know, the way I would look at it is, since 2002, when the Boko Haram challenge started, Nigeria has had 10 chief of defense staff, starting from in 2002 when you had Admiral Ibrahim Ogohi. Today, Nigerians are asking, this is almost 100 days, what are the military chiefs doing? What is the chief of defense staff doing? And the answer to that first is they are remotivating troops. You know, ever since in this Fourth Republic, there's no chief of defense staff that has traveled as much as this current chief of defense staff. In less than 100 days, he has visited 10 different states. But why, despite the remotivation of troops, why are we still not seeing Nigeria, why Nigeria is not feeling safer? And that is because of the numbers we just showed, whereby there are a lot of things that are affecting insecurity. We're seeing Nigeria's talents, most of Nigeria's talents are either classified as unemployed or underemployed. So in today's labor force, yes, we have 69 million people, which is what we have in front, but more than half of Nigeria's talent are either classified as unemployed or underemployed. In other words, the labor structure, unemployment and underemployment in Nigeria's northeast and the southeast is affecting security. One of the ways to look at it is to, rather than just approach security from the top, what we are saying is we are facing wars on employment. We are facing wars of injustice. We are facing wars of perceived injustice. We are facing wars on land. We are facing religious wars. And so to be able to solve Nigeria's national security challenge from the labor perspective, we need to look at it from these levels, rather than look at it as we want improved security. Yes, it's right for Nigerians to ask and Nigeria's labor to ask for improved security, but the approach to improve security is to fight unemployment, to fight injustice, to fight the religious wars going on, to fight the ethnic wars going on, to fight the perception of injustice and the reality of injustice. And then the final analysis, you know what the wise man once said, that there's no problem that can sustain the assault of sustained thinking. And that is what we expect from the labor force, from the talent force going forward.
Thank you so much, Professor. Always food for thought. Thanks again. And still ahead on the news at 10, time to look beyond COVID-19. That's what the Nigerian Medical Association is advocating. That's catering for all medical challenges. Stay with us. Welcome back. World Press Freedom Day is observed yearly on the 3rd of May, and the president is urging the media to use that freedom professionally with a deep sense of responsibility. President Muhammadu Buhari, in a statement through his special advisor on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, notes that press freedom is necessary for democracy to thrive, but with particular recourse to responsible journalism. In his words, that everything is permitted does not mean that there are no rules of correctness, particularly in a polity seriously challenged as ours now. The media must be sensitive to what we are going through as a country, and anything that would exacerbate the situation and further inflame passions and emotions should be avoided. On the part of governments, President Buhari pledges greater cooperation with the media to discharge its duties in line with the theme of this year's World Press Freedom Day, which is information as a public good. Meanwhile, the president of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, has also felicitated with Nigerian journalists as they celebrate this year's World Press Freedom Day. Senator Lawan said in a statement that tomorrow's commemoration reminds governments around the world of their obligation to facilitate and respect press freedom. He adds that the day is also to remind journalists on the need to respect the ethics of their profession, and that he is proud that Nigeria has a vibrant media that has always resolutely defended freedom of speech. The Senate President adds that freedom of the press enables journalists to effectively discharge their roles as the watchdog of society and the fourth estate of the realm. And the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Kaduna State University chapter and students are kicking against the proposed 500% increase in tuition fees for students of the institution. According to ASU, the school fees increase is allowed to stand, will force 75% of the university students to drop out of school, thereby leading to massive youth unemployment and restiveness.
The Kaduna State University has a 19,000 student population, 17,000 of which are indigents. Being a state-owned tertiary institution, the annual school fees paid by students over the years was pegged at 26,000 naira, while the state government augments the rest. Not anymore. Recently, the state government announced that it will increase tuition fees of students in the university in line with present realities. The newly proposed tuition fees will see indigenous students studying social science courses pay about 150,000 naira, while their counterparts in medicine and other science courses will pay 170,000 naira and above as annual fees. The Kaduna State Commissioner of Education cites increasing overhead costs and growing infrastructure needs in the institution as reasons for the increase, noting that there are various government-championed social intervention programs that will help the students augment their school fees without dropping out of school.
We have the need-based scholarship, where an ordinary common person who feel that he's a common person, who also accept that he's a common person, he is too poor to pay for the 150 or 100,000 naira scholar as a tuition fee, to go in and apply.
This development is not welcomed by staff and students alike. The school's academic staff union believes the public education system should not be a revenue generator for the state government.
This is allowed to scale through, then you're going to have massive youth going out of the university, and we all know the results of youth being idle. I've never ever seen an increment, of this magnitude.
For the students, the 500% increase in tuition is draconian, considering the nation's present economic situation.
Even at this present rate, we pay school fees. A lot of people cannot afford it. So you can imagine when it has been increased.
The issue of they are saying that they are giving us scholarship like 100,000 plus. Honestly speaking, 90% of the students are not getting this scholarship. And the scholarship is 108,000 naira. And the school fees is 170 naira. 170,000 naira.
Ultimately, it is hoped a resolution is reached soon so these students can complete their university education.
To medical issues now, the Nigeria Medical Association is advocating a resilient and strong healthcare system in Nigeria that can cater for any medical challenge, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. President of the association, Professor Innocent Uja, said this at the annual General Scientific Conference and Delegates Meeting in Jos, the Plateau State capital, where he added that Nigeria cannot afford to miss out from the global community and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, especially as they relate to healthcare delivery in the country.
Nigeria, like many countries of the world, is confronted with the COVID-19 pandemic, and medical practitioners across the country are gathered in Jos for the 61st Annual General Scientific Conference and Delegates Meeting, where issues of quality healthcare delivery, as well as the need to update the knowledge and experiences of the practitioners, are being addressed. The NMA president is optimistic that a strong health system will address the challenges as he commends efforts of medical doctors and other health workers in the containment of the pandemic.
There is need to constantly and consistently monitor and evaluate our performance at the national level and sub-national level in order to identify the gaps for timely and appropriate intervention to improve the quality of care and our response to medical emergencies.
Declaring the conference open, the Minister of Health highlights the commitment of government in the provision of healthcare facilities to meet the yearnings of the people in spite of challenges posed by the pandemic, just as the Plateau State Governor enjoins doctors to shun industrial action as a means of pressing home their demands.
Government has made considerable investment in facility upgrade and expansion and modernization in most federal and state tertiary hospitals in the shape of isolation and treatment centers, 10-bedded ICU units in every tertiary hospital, and 1 oxygen plant in each state and the FCT to ensure sufficiency in provision of care.
I wish to appeal to our medical personnel to show greater restraint in resolving industrial disputes. Strikes usually bring greater suffering to the citizens. On our part, government shall continue to work towards addressing the several problems and the areas of dispute in the health sector within the limit of resources.
The week-long event also features free medical outreach to the Nigerian Correctional Service Jos Custodial Center, where inmates were provided free medical services for various health challenges.
In view of the complaints of the non-implementation of the national minimum wage since it was signed into law, the federal government says it is ready to fight for the implementation. The Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, told Channels Television that the government is ready to wield the big stick by using the sanction clause in the Minimum Wage Act. He was guest in our political program, Sunday Politics.
They're mixing apple and oranges. This minimum wage is different from a CBA, collective bargaining agreement. This is a national law that says what you pay to the lowest paid employee, worker in your establishment. State governments are employers. Private sector people, UAC, banks, and the rest of them all are private employers. All of them are in this basket. They are caught in the web of this law until repealed. So for today, any state government or employer that goes and be negotiating minimum wage, like some of them are doing with their unions, they are running foul of the law. And Section 33 of the Act says anything you are doing in that direction is null and void. Any agreement you reach there is null and void.
So I wanted to know what you are going to do.
30,000 and run away. Well,
so what are you going to do?
With the Attorney General of the Federation.
Okay.
I'm negotiating with the Attorney General of the Federation. The law permits me to take them to court. It's there in the law. I can take any employer to court. If governors have immunity, I can decide and start from the Secretary to Government, Head of Service, and go down to members of the State Executive Council. Take them all to court.
The federal government has announced new travel advisory for passengers arriving in the country from Brazil, India and Turkey following the increasing and widespread COVID-19 cases and fatalities in these countries. According to the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, the advisory takes effect from May 4th for international flights coming into Nigeria from these countries and will be subject to review after an initial period of 4 weeks. The chairman of the committee, Boss Mustafa, says this is part of measures to minimize the risk of a surge in the pandemic and advises Nigerians to avoid any non-essential international travels to any country at this period. The guidelines include airlines having to pay a penalty of $3,500 for each passenger who defaults. Foreigners who visit Brazil, India or Turkey within days must preceding travel to Nigeria will be denied entry into Nigeria, and Nigerians and those with permanent resident permits undergoing 7 days of mandatory quarantine in a government-approved facility at the point of entry city and at cost to the passenger. You can find more of this information on our website, channelstv.com. Despite several attempts by the government to provide potable water and huge amounts of resources sunk into water supply, over 70% of people in Yola, south of Adamawa State, still cannot access potable water. As the government identifies increased population growth, urbanization, shortage of resources, among others, as responsible for the shortfall in the provision of potable water for the people.
Despite the proximity of Yola to the River Benue, water supply has been a major challenge to the people. They are compelled to buy this scarce commodity from water vendors who are making brisk business. A water vendor who has been selling the commodity for about 10 years explains the nature of the business.
Mun gode Allah muna dan samun wanda muke uzurruka da dama za mu biyan bukatun mu har mu taimaki wasu da wannan din. Ina sai da 6, 8 zuwa 10.
These 6 communities of Yola town have been without potable water for about 4 years now. To alleviate the hardship people go through to access potable water, a donor is handing over borehole equipment, pumps and accessories to fix boreholes in 6 communities of Yola town. The items include booster pumps, riser pipes, cables and accessories. About 10,000 households are expected to benefit from this intervention. A community leader from one of the benefiting communities describes the intervention as timely, while the general manager of the Adamawa State Water Board appeals to the benefiting communities to own the project.
They normally buy water from the vendors, which is very, very costly. At times they pay 300, 400 per truck. And a small household at this period of high water demand can consume about 3-4 trucks per day.
The water that are here, these things are going to be installed in their own locality. Please, I beg them, in conjunction with those that are working in Yola town, please make sure these things are safe.
The donor says intervention is to help reduce the hardship people go through daily because of lack of potable water.
Water is the main thing that you can help your people when they are in need, most especially water. Like I've said, water is everything. Even you, this morning, I'm sure you've used water before you left your house. That is the main reason why, because our people are in need of this water.
There are about 11 boreholes providing potable water. However, residents of the communities benefiting from the gesture say complementing government's efforts is a step in the right direction.
Bauchi State has moved a step closer towards the successful implementation of Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law with the launch of the Costed Model Action Plan. The 3.7 billion naira Costed Plan 2021 to 2025 is a synergy among the United Nations Women, the UK government and the Bauchi State government. Our correspondent Hajira Aliyu has more.
Bauchi State is demonstrating commitment to ending violence against persons. The state has just launched the Costed Action Plan 2021-2025 for the implementation of the VAP Law 2020 through the support of the UN Women and the UK government.
So the CMAP is the first of its kind in Nigeria and is happening in Bauchi State. We are calling it a model tool that will be copied by other states in Nigeria.
The 63-page document presents 8 goals with varying objectives and activities to be implemented by identified actors within a time frame and an estimated cost of 3.7 billion naira.
I have the singular honor and privilege.
To complement the plan, 2 implementation committees have been inaugurated. The advisory committee headed by the wife of the governor and a technical committee headed by the State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice.
I assure you that we will do everything possible to see the effective implementation of the law in the state as well as timely report of the activities of the committee with a view to achieve success.
With this implementation strategy, the state is again reaffirming its commitment to put an end to all forms of violence.
Through the Costed Model Action Plan, CMAP, for the implementation of VAP law in the state, the government has identified intervention strategies that will have a direct impact on the lives and welfare of the most vulnerable persons in Bauchi State.
The fight is also receiving a boost from the Conference of Speakers of State Houses of Assembly.
Violence is anachronistic and barbaric. Thus, the Conference of Speakers of State Legislatures of Nigeria, under my leadership, will embark on a legislative advocacy to ensure that all states of the Federation that did not pass the VAP law do so without hesitation.
If the commitment shown here translates into action by the various stakeholders, the state may be on its way to becoming a model in the fight against all forms of violence. Hajira Aliyu, Channels Television News.
To the foreign scene, India's COVID-19 cases have remained above 300,000 for 11 consecutive days, so says the Health Ministry. On Sunday, it reported nearly 400,000 new COVID-19 cases in 24 hours, bringing the national tally to over 19.5 million. Here's more in the Global Update. 392,488 cases of coronavirus were reported in India on Sunday, raising total tally closer to the 20 million mark. But the federal government has still ruled out a complete lockdown. though nearly 10 states and union territories have imposed some form of restrictions. Hospitals, morgues and crematoriums have been overwhelmed as families are left on their own to scramble for medicines and oxygen. Dozens of people have died in the last 1 week due to shortage of oxygen in hospitals in Delhi alone. 40 countries around the world have committed their support and help with medical supplies, particularly oxygen, to help combat the ongoing second wave of the epidemic. In other news, more than 270.4 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered across China as of Saturday, so says the National Health Commission. To speed up the largest vaccination campaign in the country's history, the Chinese government has set up more than 50,000 vaccination stations across the country, which has so far approved all 4 COVID-19 vaccines, while another has been in the process for emergency use. The total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the United States surpassed 32.8 million on Saturday, with the death toll exceeding 576,000. The United States still has the largest number of confirmed COVID-19 cases and deaths in the world. Finally, hundreds of Brazilians have hit the streets of Sao Paulo, showing their support for President Jair Bolsonaro, who is being criticized for his handling of the pandemic. The South American country has now registered 406,437 total coronavirus deaths and over 14.7 million total confirmed cases. However, new cases have fallen off a late March peak, but remain high by historical standards. Determined to create the needed capacity development for young basketballers, former NBA star Obinna Ekezie has unveiled Africa's first basketball academy in Lagos. Our next report takes a look at how the academy, the first of its kind, not only in Nigeria, but the continent, aims at contributing to the development of the sport in Africa.
Achieving the feat of these basketball legends by young Africans starts with baby steps. And former National Basketball Association star Obinna Ekezie seeks to provide that platform by setting up Africa's first basketball academy in Lagos. The academy, named Organized Basketball Network, serves as a center to profile and groom young talents from the age of 6 to 18 in Africa. It boasts of a standard basketball court with 7 rims, a sports medical department, and a studio. The former Washington Wizards and Los Angeles Clippers forward says it's part of its efforts to revamp the continent's basketball.
If I studied basketball, organized basketball at an earlier age, at maybe around the age of 10 or something like that, I would have been a much better player earlier. And that was the motivation that led me to start this program early, to give the kids a chance to start the developmental process at a much younger age.
Basketball stakeholders are delighted with the infrastructure and programs for grassroots development.
70% of the youth in Nigeria are under the age of 30, and so it's really important that we engage the youth and that we invest the youth so they can get the skills to take on the responsibilities of the next generation.
This is exactly what we thought Nigerian basketball should begin to do. And our national teams are going to be the ultimate beneficiaries. How? Because we are going to take out the issue of cheating. We manage kids the actual ages that we know, and they rise steadily and they grow into the senior national team program.
With the takeoff of the Basketball Academy, young talents can now start dreaming of becoming superstars, not just in the NBA, but other professional leagues in the world.
Manchester United's Premier League game against Liverpool at Old Trafford has been postponed following protests against the Glazer family. Hundreds of fans, as you see there, got into the stadium ahead of the behind-closed-doors contest, which was originally scheduled for a 4:30 p.m. kickoff time before being delayed and then called off completely. Meanwhile, a much-changed Arsenal side has ended Newcastle's strong run of form with a 2-0 victory away at St James's Park earlier today. A win provides a much-needed confidence boost for the Gunners after a tricky 2-1 defeat at the hands of Villarreal in their Europa League semi-final first leg on Thursday. And the main news again. The Department of State Services today warned political and religious leaders against inciting comments that could hamper the unity and sovereignty of the country. The security agency also threatened to go after suspected agents of anarchy. Also today, President Buhari congratulated the media ahead of the Press Freedom Day tomorrow and urged them to stick to the rules of correctness, while the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, says the 9th Senate will not pass any law that inhibits the freedom of the press. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.